Hello, word nerds. Happy Sunday and welcome to our quarterly book club. Today we are talking all about Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, and we have feelings. We were a little bit late because we're looking up all the pronunciations of all the names and all of that, but we have a lot of things we want to talk about, so we are just going to jump right into it. As always, we are going to start with our rating out of 5 stars, just kind of going around giving some quick thoughts. We would love to hear from any of you who've read the book. What did you think? Did you enjoy it? Do you have a star rating? Let us know. So we're going to get into it, and we're going to start with Emma.
Okay. I am definitely giving this 5 stars. I think this was my favorite book of last year. I read it in the summer, so it's been a little while, but I really loved it, and I recommend it to everyone, even if they don't like creepy things. I'm like, no, read this book. So I love it.
Megan.
I also gave this 5 stars. I read it around the same time as Emma, so we had feelings about it together and then demanded that it be a book club book. I love it. I think it's a great, it ticks like all of the Gothic novel boxes, but feels really fresh, and it's just great. After I finished reading it, I immediately sent it to all my family members' Kindles. So and I was like, open your Kindle. There's a book there.
Kaylin.
So my initial gut reaction was 3 stars, so I just finished it literally like 3 hours ago. But now the more I process it, it's definitely going to be 4 stars, even if it's just on the writing alone. The writing was beautiful.
It was so pretty.
Yeah, that is fair.
Mm-hmm.
And Erin.
I gotta go 5 out of 5. I had a hard time initially getting into it, not because I didn't like it, but because I was finding Virgil so frustrating, and Howard as well. Just so it was making me so angry. But I was thinking, I'll read it over, the Saturday and then some more on the Sunday, and then I accidentally read it all in one sitting instead. And I just think it was one of the best books as far as painting a picture goes, completely horrifying, and I absolutely loved the whole thing, especially the climax.
And Rachel.
I'm gonna give this a 4.5, somewhere in there. I did think it was absolutely writing's beautiful, very atmospheric, but I had a couple issues with some points of the pacing and some of the character development, Doc just a tiny bit. But I actually enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. And Megan was absolutely right when she told me to not trust the mushrooms.
Oh my gosh.
I remember her telling me that months ago. She's like, don't trust the mushrooms. I'm like, I have no idea what this means. Now, I get it. They're very suspicious.
Yeah, there was mushrooms in my dinner tonight, and I was like, oh no. No.
I considered cooking some mushrooms and just sitting here and eating them during the chat just to creep people out. So the day that I finished this book, because I finished it at 2 p.m., and then that night, I was over with my boyfriend and his aunt was making dinner, and we're all cutting up vegetables to put in this big hot pot, and she just hands me this plate of mushrooms, and I had a little breakdown. We were both like, "Are you okay?" We just gave you a plate of stuff to cut.
Rachel's just standing there frozen with the mushrooms.
Yeah,
amazing.
So I had to explain it, and they were like, "Okay, weirdo."
That's fantastic.
Every was 4 stars, I think is where I landed. I really, really love the writing. I read it pretty quickly, but as much as a suck as I am with scary things for TV and movies, with books, I cannot make that final mental leap. So there just was a level of, I know I'm supposed to be feeling things here, and it just kind of, So, yeah, I don't know. I read it a couple weeks ago, and I'm still kind of processing as well. I don't know how I feel, but let's talk about it. I'm sure I'll figure it out.
There's a lot to process, so can't blame you guys.
The mushrooms were very creepy. Just, the concept of we eat the mushrooms and then the mushrooms eat us when we're dead. That's just a creepy general concept to me. So that had that going. For me, the most creepy thing was always the characters, the Doyle family. Were always the thing that creeped me out the most. There's going to be a lot of spoilers from here on out, so stop watching if you don't want spoilers. But that scene where she has to kiss him and stuff.
Oh,
Like that was
God. I
yeah.
hated that. I know. Pretty
Yeah.
much everything from like I think the beginning of it, like the first half was more like atmospheric, like eerie, unsettling, and then the entire second half goes from like 0 to 100 real fast, and then it's like crank that crate factor, and it was just like so gross. I'm like, I hate this, but it's so good.
Hate this, but I can't stop. I do kind of wish I do kind of wish that she'd had more pages, more time to explore, like slowly having the main character fall into this, like something's wrong with the house, something's in the walls, like have it more slowly unravel, because that was how it was at the start. And then it seems once she sees the mold, things seem to like Rachel said, go from 0 to 100 really fast. At the time, I didn't mind it, but now I'm like, I would have liked even more of that, just to like ramp up the creepy. But I understand you only have so many pages to do that.
I think we've talked
especially if you.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, especially if you take the dreams into consideration too. Like, I did a lot of groundwork, but you didn't know that at the time, so it was kind of like after reading the whole thing, you're like, okay, now should I go back and just read some of the dream sequences? That way, it kind of ties everything together. Because I think the dreams did a lot of the legwork that we just didn't pick up on at the time.
Yeah, I think this book would be better to read it a second time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think it's one of those books that's complicated enough that like going back through, you would catch a lot that you didn't before, at least for me, because I know with like all of the things about the past family members, and then later explaining how the mushrooms actually worked and how he like where he took the idea from the people in the cave and stuff. I was like, this is a lot to take in, and I think I get it. I mostly get it, but there are definitely pieces that I'm probably not like quite fitting together the way
I definitely, as I was reading like the earlier parts of the book, like with all the dreams, like I knew it was going to be significant. Like I figured it probably was like people who had been part of the family, you know, like I figured they were not just dreams, you know? But I think it would be interesting to like go back once you know all the pieces and figure out how it all goes together.
Yeah, one of the things we've talked about a lot, because we all watched Hill House and Bly Manor together this year. One of the things we talked about a lot was just the idea of like, well, how long can you wait before you have to just admit that it's ghosts?
That's what I was just going to bring up.
And it's like, it almost feels like once Noemi knows this is real and it's supernatural, there's kind of no way to slow the acceleration realistically.
True.
Like they have to keep her there. They have to do the thing. And she knows that it's supernatural and really messed up.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And you kind of like when you hit that point as a reader where she was like, I'm leaving, you're like, oh, I don't think you are. Like,
Oh yeah.
But in terms of like giving her more time to like fall into that, I do think they timed it well of that, like, even if you don't know it's supernatural yet, things are wrong enough here that I have to go. And I think they hit that point nicely of like, she wasn't just going to hang around to see what happened anymore.
Smart.
Yeah, like the tension, like the building tension of it was so well done. And even though like, I freaking hate Virgil so much, but I'm like, you are gaslighting her, sir. How dare you? Like, you're the worst.
I hated him.
I know.
It was really well done how like earlier in the book, you like kind of go back and forth of like, is he
well done.
Is he like involved in bad, or like does he actually care for Katerina?
I for sure thought there was going to be. I thought there was going to be a twist where Virgil was the good one and Francis was the bad one.
I had
expecting
that too.
Especially
I was expecting it the whole time.
Well, like one of the scenes where this is kind of like near the like the point where she actually goes to him and like they're in his room and she's like, I think there's ghosts in the walls, and he's like, no. But like at that point I was like, oh, absolutely, he's not the good guy that we think he is. Like he's gonna be bad. I mean, he kind of like he does like help her and everything.
He was
so, like,
sort
okay.
of like the part you're talking about was the same for me. It was like a oh crap moment where she said,
I was like, oh,
she was talking about how things could be in the wallpaper that would make members of the house sick, like when the Victorians had green wallpaper that would kill them with arsenic or whatever it was, or lead. And then he was like, shut her down, and I was like, oh,
yeah, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I definitely found myself distrusting Francis because it was like, oh well, everyone else is really bad, so you're probably bad, but I really want you to be good.
Yeah,
I know, I love Francis. That was actually something that like, I think
towards the end, like when she first met up with him after the like wedding ceremony, I thought he was Harold. I thought that transition had already happened, and it was like, okay, he's
That's
acting
what
like
they
Francis,
meant
but it's
to
really
do.
Harold. And I was expecting that, but then when they went in the room and Harold was still alive, I was like, okay, never mind then. Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Well, that was their plan all along, which would have
Right.
been
Yeah.
so screwed up if
I
that
know
had
it's
happened.
so gross.
So horrible. Yeah, I really, really hated Harold and Virgil. I was like so happy that the ending happened the way it did.
I think Harold was just enough of the creep factor for me. Like, I think he was like a perfect creepy, like, bad character. I have a lot of feelings about Virgil's character though. Like in the like you said, like the first half of the book was this beautiful atmospheric gothic setting. She did an amazing job at like describing the the house to where it felt alive. Like you could visually see it. And then you had this character who kind of came in, and I feel like the scenes that were supposed to like give you that like triggered reaction brought me out of like that gothic setting. Like it happened, and I just feel like, I don't know if it was some of the terminology that Virgil used was like, like about her being a good girl and stuff like that. It was like, I felt it was a little cheesy for it being a scene that was supposed to give me like a lot of emotion, and it just pulled me out of the actual story itself. That was like my main like issue with the whole thing.
That's so interesting, because I had a different reaction, but it was still an intense reaction to it. Because like it also has something to do with what I have been writing, which is, wraps around all of the same things, like how soon do you show the ghosts, and like also men that like take without asking and things like that. So I've been doing a lot of research the past week, and like actually had to take a break from it because I was feeling so like angry. And so having to read about Virgil was like really intense emotion for me, and me being like, okay, I can do this. Like, I love the rest of the book. I'll just push through his scenes. But yeah, I had a very different reaction. It didn't pull me out of the story, but it made me like super angry.
Yes, I had to put this book down a couple times. I'm just like, I'm so mad right now, and like I can't do anything about it.
But I also think it's realistic, because I've met men like Virgil. They don't live in a house full of mushrooms, but like the rest of it is pretty realistic that I know of. They're not fungal men that I know of, but
okay, quick pause, because we have so many comments.
Yes!
Most people that have ever read book club with us. So, okay, scrolling back up to the top, because I'm so impressed that all of you showed up and read this book. It's so exciting. So we have a bunch of 5-star ratings. Hysteric Blue 17 has thoughts and feelings, maybe an unpopular opinion, but maybe I'm in the unpopular opinion camp. As a Mexican that did not really enjoy Mexican Gothic, I had high expectations for it, and it fell kind of flat for me. It's interesting. And Griswold likes that Noemi tried to leave, because one of the first things I yell at characters is just leave, run for your life. Debbie gave it a 2.5 to 3, not as scary as they would have liked. It's just, I'm trying to follow it. It's all very interesting.
I also agree with Debbie that she says the book got better for me towards the end. It was the same with me. I like had to make myself read, and then the end sort of gripped me, and I
see. I'm actually the opposite. I think I really like the beginning. I like that gothic atmosphere of it. Like, I really enjoyed it. And I feel like that, like you guys said, the ending was, I think, just too fast for me.
Yeah. And I loved the first half where we were doing that stuff with Virgil, like the gaslighting and like we don't know who to trust, and really subverting the expectations of like people who know what to kind of expect from horror, but we don't know where to look for it, and like who's not, who can we trust, who can we not trust, who was maybe possessed by somebody, or like maybe like that. I think for Virgil that was a big part of what I was thinking of, like when he was nice, of like, was one or the other being affected by something supernatural? Like, it seemed like two different people, and like I guess coming off of Bly Manor and creepy possessions there and stuff. My brain was like, maybe
you
this
don't
isn't.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, you don't necessarily like even rule that out now. Like, he was possibly just a garbage human being and would be without the mushrooms, but like the attraction she was feeling to him, at some of those worst moments where he's basically attacking her, and she realizes like, this isn't me, it's something the house is doing to me. Like, I wonder how much of that was Virgil and how much of that was the house, or like, or even what's his face, the grandpa, because he was a piece of crap too,
See, for me, it was like, terrible people have nice faces. Like, like it wasn't the house. Like, they used the house and the land and everything to prop up the awfulness. But
Like
I
Francis
love
lives in the house and he's not awful, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved that
That's true.
you
Yeah.
wanted to trust him sometimes because that's how people really are.
Mhm. Yeah, who said that? Where they were saying like, oh, it wasn't like Mexican enough, and I'm like, I do kind of feel that way too. Like I like the beginning, like talking about like 1950 and like being in Mexico City. I'm like, this is so cool, and then we kind of just get a lot of like the English stuff, and I was like, oh, it'd be kind of nice if Noemi and Catalina had kind of like talked a little bit more.
It was funny,
like
before we
had like that
started,
like incorporated a little bit more into the story.
Random House made an official playlist to go with the book, and I was a little disappointed that none of the music was very Mexican or very Gothic and didn't really reflect the era. So like it was all like kind of like almost grungy and strange and kind of get that like hallucinogenic feel to it, but it was neither Mexican or Gothic, and I was bummed.
Weird.
Yeah, there's so many
Yeah,
elements of the book. I guess they were only choosing the one. Interesting.
Strange.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. Like, I definitely expected a more like Mexican vibe to it, and especially when we go up there, it's very European, and then they have dinner, and it's all about like this obsession over her skin and her race and her beauty, and I'm like, it got super creepy, like super fast.
I did really like that though. I was like, oh, it was so gross.
She like in the way that the characters handled it, like she handled it perfectly too. So it's like as a character, like I love that she didn't back down. She did speak up, but she wasn't like angry when the service. She tried to bottle it in and was very smooth about it. I love that about the character.
A lot of
it definitely threw me off.
A lot of the I found this really interesting because like a lot of the biases that Howard has were where she's like, oh, I wonder if he keeps calipers to measure people's heads. That was literally something they did in the 19th century, was measure your head and be like, oh, you're a woman and therefore not intelligent, so this is the shape of your head. And same with people that weren't white, right? So like little touches like that, she's like, oh, now I know he has them, I just wonder how many he has, like stuff like that. Were really good like historical touches.
Yeah, I know that the location is based on a real place that was like mined by the Spanish and then the British. So I don't really feel informed enough to speak to like culturally how like accurate that, like I don't feel like I'm educated, nor do I super feel like it's my place to be like, oh, this wasn't this enough. I do,
because I don't know what would make a book like more Mexican,
the author like loves Gothic stories and wants to write a Gothic story, and her character
that is her experience.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't necessarily like, I would never in a review as a white person be like, it's not Mexican enough, because that's really not my place to say if it is or isn't. But yeah, it's interesting.
I think I was just so interested about her family that I was like, I want to spend more time with like your family and like in your city, like in your element.
I would love
going to parties. Like she just seems so cool. Yeah, I'm like, I want to see the 1950s Mexico City. Like this is so cool.
Maybe we'll get more of that in the show because there's more time to.
Oh, possibly, yeah. Because I read
maybe we'll get some like flashbacks too, because I know that she does think about Hugo a lot throughout like her time at the house. So maybe we'll get some flashbacks to some parties and stuff too. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I would love to see. I don't think that Silvia will ever do like a sequel, but I would love to see like how does your family react when you come home after this sort of experience? Like so, like
with Francis.
With Francis.
Just get your cousin. Yes, Francis.
Yeah. Well, we were
like
kind
a
of talking
novella of them coming back.
Yeah.
We were talking about this before the live chat started because we were talking like, oh, is it a movie? Is it going to be a TV show? Whatever. Rights have been bought, and I think production started with
Hulu.
Yeah. So we're all very excited for that, and I do think it's going to transfer onto film like seamlessly,
so beautifully, especially like the part in the cavern with like when she sees like, her.
I hated that so much.
Good. Oh my god,
like,
this is so horrifying.
Yeah,
by far, this is one of those books that left me waiting until the very end because I was waiting for that other twist to come. I was waiting for Francis to be evil. I was waiting for Agnes to come out of the wall or something. Like I was waiting until the very end for something like. Even when they were back at the doctor's office and Francis was passed out, I'm like, something bad's about to happen. I feel it. It like made me wait till the very end. Like it was so good.
Oh my god, the climax was so good. And I have like I was saying before we went live, I was like, I'm sure other people who watch a lot of horror movies thought this too, but I was fully expecting. I don't think it would be as effective in a book to have that scene where she's like looking to at him in his eyes, essentially, like at the very end. And like a classic horror movie is to have just like that flicker of yellow in his eyes and then you know, cut to credits immediately afterwards. So I'm like, they're absolutely going to do this if they do like a movie or anything that's like a limited series, is have that. But if they're clever with it, they can do the like Inception thing where it's like, does the top fall down or does it stay up? We cut the black. We don't know. So if you can get it subtle enough so that like maybe you saw yellow in his eyes, but you don't know, you know, like that type of thing.
He's looking in the mirror. Is it really there? Or is he just afraid that it's there?
Yeah, that type of thing. Yeah. So good.
Oh my gosh. I'm already imagining like the special effects that they're gonna have for these like weird ass psychedelic dream sequences. And I'm like, oh, I'm so ready.
It was did it remind anyone else of Crimson Peak a little bit? Like the house and
Yeah,
the
a little
weird
bit.
brother and sister and the, I had flashbacks of that, but I think it was much more clever than Crimson Peak, even because it was like a way bigger reveal than just like their brother and sister.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah. I'm really excited too. We had multiple people in the discussion section mentioning that it didn't feel scary enough. And Kelly, you talked about it too, just how like it's really hard for a book to be scarier than something that's on the screen, because your brain can just be like, no, or like it's really hard. You can't sneak up on someone in a book. You can't jump scare in a book.
My brain is always controlling the pacing, so I'm never really surprised.
Right.
Yeah. So
I will say, the scene in the graveyard, which you first saw the figure that looked like it had a halo, I was like waiting for something to happen. So it was like, it wouldn't have been something that like sprung up on me, but like I felt the tension rising. And like this book specifically for me, like I know it's kind of classified as like a horror, but like when I think of gothic horror, it's definitely more atmospheric and like undertones are really creepy than shock value and like jump scares and kind of that kind of thing. I think they honestly believe they're going to do jump scares like in like the show, because that's going to add some, you know, intensity to it.
Yeah, well, like I didn't also like
dramatic kind of like gothicness to it.
Yeah, well, like I wasn't sold this because it was a horror novel. Like I was sold this because it was like a thriller novel, and I was like, oh, okay. So
like gothic to me is very much like the Doyles and their weird relationships and the way they're so weird about the house. You know, like that is gothic at its essence to me. Not necessarily like, oh, this is so horrifying. It's like deeply unsettling. Right.
A woman in the attic / a woman in your creepy cave. Like,
exactly. Yeah, with the Catalina being kind of like out of it and her having to like go to this like forest countryside area, not being able to figure out what's wrong with her cousin. That's very gothic. Like, what's wrong with my cousin, you know?
Yeah. Well, Vanessa said Noemi and Catalina reminded me of Mina and Lucy from Dracula. The setting and pacing felt very similar too. Yeah. And I think that like they're definitely, you can feel a lot of the influence of like classic gothic novels, like Rebecca and like Dracula and things like that. Where there's a house and there's people who are weird and you don't know if you can trust them or not. And
they're monstrous.
So good. Oh my gosh.
I will say one like small complaint that I had is that why I bumped it down to like 4 stars is because I felt like Noemi was kind of a 2-dimensional character. Like I felt like not a lot of the characters changed. Like I know some of them, of course, like for example, like Florence, who's like the mother caretaker, or whatever. Like she never changes. So there's never like a spark of doubt in her to like help Noemi.
I don't think that she as a character is supposed to change though. Like
but like Virgil never changed. He just got worse. Which I guess is sort of changing. But like he never changed, Florence never changed, the grandfather never changed, Catalina never changed because she never did anything.
Yeah,
except for like sneak that one note.
I feel like Virgil was the same the whole way through. It was just revealed at the end that he wanted to be the one that changed.
Yeah, and like Francis was kind of the only one who like changed because he eventually like kind of got confident enough to like get out and away. But even Nomi, I'm like she wasn't soft spoken and then she got brash. She wasn't. You know, like she was always a good smooth talker. Like she was always very outspoken. Like I didn't find like she had a big character arc, except it was finding out this terrible thing.
She did have to change her behavior though to fit in with and survive essentially in that house. Like she has moments where she's like, normally I would react like this, but like Virgil is not going to take that from me, type of thing. You know, so she's like kind of. She's not like a 2D character in my opinion. And I think that if you have if you had too much of a plot arc, I don't know, especially for the minor characters, like the housekeeper / mother, I almost want them to be, I don't know, because they're sinister and evil. And that's the function they're providing for the story. I don't know. I don't necessarily need her to have her own plot arc, you know.
Yeah, like the other characters are more like set deck than they are actual characters. Like, they're not like super.
Yeah, I don't mind that actually.
Yeah,
in a horror, in a gothic horror.
Yeah.
When we start the book, Noemi is like her thing is that she's really flighty and doesn't make up her mind about things. And I can't fully remember, but I'm pretty sure there comes a point when she's in town and she could just leave. And she chooses to go back, which to me is a signal of, at least I agree it's not like a huge character change, but I do think that is like oh no, she's like committing to this thing.
It is, yeah, it is also a love story too, right? Like she starts the book very flighty with romances too, and she's very clear, like, boys are fun, but I don't want to settle for anyone. And then starts being like, oh, I think I actually like this guy. Like, even though he's not my normal type. He's not my type.
He's super boring and kind of ugly, but like, you know.
But yeah. Like literally the only problem I had with the writing is because I read it so fast, I picked up on this one thing, and that was every single time in like the first 50% of the book, when Frances walked into the room, it was Virgil's hot, Frances is ugly. Like every time. Like every single time. It highlighted how handsome Virgil was and how not handsome Frances was. And I was like, it's the one thing that kind of like poked out at me. I'm like, I get it. He's not super attractive, but she likes him. That's okay.
Yeah, I don't pick up on stuff like that. I did not notice.
It's only because I read so fast. Literally read it in 2 days. Like, I mean, I gave it 3 to 4 stars, but it literally kept me up till 3 a.m. last night. Like, I was really like trying to finish this book.
Cool.
We had a related question from N. Griswold. What did you think about the romance? I didn't really care for the relationship between Noemi and Frances. It didn't feel like insta-love, but it wasn't very believable for me.
Yeah, I didn't feel the chemistry on that at all.
I would die for Noemi and Frances.
Whoa!
I was like, you are all wrong.
You are wrong and bad, and you should feel bad.
Yeah. I think I liked the idea of them more than I actually liked them. Like there was, especially at the very beginning, I was like, I really like their rapport. Like, he's obviously shy and awkward, and she's a little bit more, outspoken, and like they kind of balance each other out, and like she's gonna bring him out of his shell. But then by the end, when eventually they kiss, I'm like, that's it. Like, I don't know, I'm not feeling it right now.
I got the sense they were like clinging to each other in like what amounts to hostile territory, and like I could see like a trauma bond being formed, and then like I think one of the reasons I wouldn't want a sequel is because like they get to the city and then she's like, cool, so you're just gonna follow me around. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Helen says she didn't feel it at all. She kind of wanted it to end with them apart or as friends.
Yeah.
It might end up still friends.
Well, this is also a thing, because it's like that the romance is not a part of the novel, really. Like, sort of. I don't know. Like, I feel like it was underdeveloped, but then again, it's not necessarily the focus of the book. So I'm like, I can't quite say
what
that.
Was the length of time this book lasted? Does anyone know?
A couple weeks, I think.
I'm not sure.
That's one of the things I was also going to talk about with like the pacing and everything, and like you said, like Rachel was talking about the character arcs. In my head, it was a lot shorter of a time frame, like maybe a month.
I thought it was a long.
So it's like I was okay with them not having as drastic of a change by the end.
I thought it was a long.
I know that
pretty
once
sure
she found out about everything, it was like a lot of skipping over days.
Yeah, I
Without
know there's
really
a lot
like
of
making it obvious
of like, oh, a week has passed.
And in a lot of those skipping things, it's implied that she didn't really do a lot in those times. Like, she just ate alone in her room and stuff. So she wasn't like bonding with Frances or anything while that was happening. So it felt like a short period of time for me to have anything more than like, let's just survive this together and go from there.
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of like the romance trope of like cinnamon roll person who just makes you feel very like relaxed when you're not normally a very relaxed person. Like, that is one of my absolute favorite romance tropes. Just the like, I see this person and I feel chill. I think we need so much more of it. It's just like, it's a healthy relationship. And for me, that was like what that relationship was. It was like a moment of relaxation in an otherwise stressful situation. And I don't know that it would like last forever in the real world, but also like the real world is very loud and the thing that they have going is that they're able to like be quiet together. And that's why I really like Francis in particular as a character, because he's like fine with just being quiet.
Doesn't she at some point, I've read this like a week ago, so like I should remember this, but doesn't at one point she say like, oh, I can't, like Francis is so quiet, I can't imagine him in this loud Mexico City, like going to bars with me and like riding with my convertible top down, like, so yeah, like how is their relationship gonna work? I don't know.
Say that, but it did transition to her encouraging him to come to the city with her too.
Okay.
Like, oh, you'll like it. It's loud. There's so much to do. There's so much experience. You can go to a beach and get some color in your cheeks and stuff like that. So that was one transition.
Yeah. Because even though he's like really quiet, you find out that like he like really wants to like see the world and experience things.
Yeah, because he's just grown up in that weird
Because
ass
his
house.
drawings. Oh my god.
That was very cute. I did like that. I think I was too hyper focused on like trying to pick up clues about him actually being the bad guy that I kind of missed out on truly like experiencing them as a romantic relationship. I'm like, don't trust him. Don't trust the mushrooms and don't trust him.
There was like a time near the end, like I was cool with him all the way up to the end, and then I was like, oh no, is it gonna be like when he went actually upstairs to his grandpa or whatever? And then I was like, oh no, maybe he was like in this all along, and he was like, I tricked her into trusting me, and now you can transfer it, and I'm like a willing participant. I was like, if that happens, I'm going to be crushed, but it was not.
I just hope Francis and Noemi both have had good days and that they've drank enough water.
Yeah, like I hope they're doing well.
The sequel in Megan's mind.
In my mind,
just
well hydrated,
hydrated.
just like being hydrated and like looking out windows. Like, oh, this is great, so pretty.
Traveling the world.
Hopefully create
Adorable.
his room somewhere else in another place.
Yeah,
like because his room was like, if I had to be in that place, it was like my favorite room in the house, obviously. Least murderous.
And the other person who deserves a happy ending, and we haven't really touched on much, Catalina.
I was about to ask
nice
what
things.
happened to her at the end.
She got out.
Gets out with
I
them.
forgot.
Yeah,
She
she
did
got
get
out.
out with them. Yeah. It's like once everything caught on fire, she like snapped out of it and she was like aware.
That's right.
I
Well,
hope
when
that Catalina gets the fairy tale romance that she wants.
Yeah.
I would say no.
She deserves
Her
it.
husband is a mushroom and on fire. So.
No, I mean, like, with
Someone new.
I would have major trust issues after that though.
I hope
Absolutely.
she's getting so much therapy.
Yeah, she needs it.
Well, it's like going out to dinner and just being like, would you like the chicken with the Alfredo sauce or the mushrooms?
Or the mushroom.
Which
Think
one would you
carefully
prefer?
before you answer.
Yeah.
Maybe she like meets a nice guy in group therapy or something.
There we go. Fingers
Group
crossed.
therapy for people who've been in a haunted house
Or
situation.
traumatized by vegetables. Group bonding.
Yeah, someone else is just like terrified of eggplants, and like someone else like can't look at a root vegetable without crying.
Perfect.
Not at all the right time frame, but she could fall in love with what's his face from Bly Manor, the chef, and he can cook her meals. He can cook her meals with no mushrooms.
You're just like shipping random characters.
This is a good crossover. I like
I
it.
forgot what my favorite part with Catalina was when she just started going crazy and stabbing the grandpa. I think I let out an audible gasp and like, dang, girl.
Yeah, so happy that she got that revenge.
So satisfying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she stabs Virgil too, actually. Right in the eyeball.
And both of
Yeah.
them got stabbed in the eye.
In the eyeball.
Good times.
So
good
she was
times.
pretty badass for not really doing much else.
Well,
during
there was
Yeah.
one scene, like I'm looking through my notes on my ebook. So there was a scene where she first went into the library and she found the journal where it had like the family's pedigree chart and all of that stuff, and she just like kind of casually tossed it into the trash can. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And
Actually,
it makes me so sad because there's all those descriptions like beautiful libraries and like sitting rooms, and just everything is covered in
And it's
mold, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I hate this. So much.
I
Or she
hate
like tries to do stuff and she like takes a book and like opens it, it's just like full of mold. I'm like, I hate this. This is
Mildew.
gross. This is terrible.
Yeah, I
Like,
can
The
almost
library is pretty
smell it.
eugenics themed. It's fine.
yeah,
Nobody needs
yeah, right.
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that library can burn. It's
That
fine.
library can rot. That's okay.
Totally fine.
There was one parallel that I really liked was towards the end, right before the ceremony, when she was trying on the wedding dress,
Mhm.
and it said that it reminded her of an abandoned snakeskin. I was like, that's
Oh.
what
Yes.
that was so good.
File that one away. Think about
Yes, that was so good.
Yeah, and Griswold wants to talk more about Howard. Can we talk about Howard and how all these crazy people just allow, accept, embrace the crazy?
Well, I don't think they have a choice. Like their mushroom brains or mushrooms are addling their brain. But yeah, that was weird.
It is curious though. Why did it take until Virgil to overthrow him? I mean, it said that he got his subconscious got transferred several times. So this isn't the first, or technically it was the last. It wasn't the first time it happened. So why not try to overthrow him before? Like, I know that they said that, like, when he initially got shot by Ruth, that he couldn't transition into anybody else because there wasn't anybody of age for him to be able to transition to, and God forbid he transitioned into a woman's body.
Right.
I do
so,
think
why
that's
wait?
a huge theme, though, is just this idea of like proximity to power and just, evil wearing a familiar face. And this idea, like, don't we all know like families who
I was gonna say it's very like a Gothic family secret, or family secrets are like a very deep Gothic theme, and like it very much was like the Doyle family. Don't you know who we are? Like we used to be great, we still are. Like protect the family at all costs type of thing, which is one of the strong themes. So that made sense. But I hated Florence for some reason, especially.
I would have liked more with Marta, like the town healer, where she went to go get the tonic for Catalina. Cool. Like she came up twice. Once when she went to the town to get it, and the second time she went to go receive it. She got these two really lengthy stories while she was there, and then she just disappeared. I would have liked a lot more from her.
Did we find out what the tincture was? Like, what did that?
Yeah, it was something that was killing the mushroom inside Catalina, which is why when she like took a giant
what did they say that it was?
They said it was opium or something.
Poppy,
opium,
whatever. Yeah, opium. Yeah.
No, it was like if you're supposed to drink it like tiny bits that would also like you kill the mushroom.
4 spoonfuls.
Yeah, then she like took a giant thing and she started screaming.
Go!
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as she did that, and then like they were really casual about it. I was like, oh no, the lady said 1.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
3.
Stephanie wanted to clarify, we were under the impression that Howard couldn't be killed, right? So that's why they waited. So they thought kind of he had to die on his own terms. Or just
we know that they could. Well, I guess it wasn't the high level people that died. It was just the uncles and the cousins that died.
Yeah. Wasn't Virgil going to kill him, or was he going to wait till he died on his own?
I think he was going to wait till he died.
I think
they were all just kind of like he's on his last legs.
Okay.
Unclear.
Like when they first went down and like Virgil came into the cathedral, like underneath the cavern with all the mushrooms, he mentioned that he separated them at the end of the ceremony and locked Francis in his room on purpose to make Noemi like get to that point, because he wanted Harold to die. Like he didn't want Harold to be transferred into Francis.
Okay. So there was going to be no transfer essentially in Virgil's mind. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm deeply lost, but
yeah, I think again this is like why I docked some marks, is because so much happened in the last like 50 pages that I'm still like, okay, hold on, this person's related to this person, but this person died because was this person's other kid.
Yeah, that was really hard for me to keep track of, and I wanted to look up a family tree as I was reading, but I'm like, I don't want to be spoiled for anything, so I didn't. I'm still gonna try and look for a family tree.
Yeah, with like the story of Ruth and like her mother and father.
Yeah, what was the answer and who was the mother and why the statue, and like I don't remember where that went.
So Agnes was the statue. So Agnes was the first wife. Right. She died. They weren't even married for about a year, and it did say mother on her thing. And that was one of the things I pondered for a while. Agnes was the mother of the gloom.
That's what I was gonna say. She means like mother's spore, right?
Yeah.
Like
it was her mind that fueled the gloom.
Her body that they burn.
Well, no, they buried her alive.
She's like
no, but at the end.
I never am going to
burn her.
At the end.
They burn her at the end. Yeah.
They threw the oil lamp at her at the end.
Because a mother something is what they call the thing at the bottom of the kombucha that ferments it.
Oh, they do? Or like an apple cider vinegar.
I hate that.
Mother something. I don't know what.
Oh God, that's so gross.
Yeah, my apple cider vinegar says like with the mother on the bottom. This would be better for you.
It has extra meaning now. Oh no.
Oh God, I hate this.
I said, never gonna drink kombucha apple cider.
Your own
well,
spore
I don't know.
dynasty.
I just don't like. Well, kombucha's gross. If you like kombucha, you're wrong. It's, it's like,
Wow, that was an unexpected attack.
what, do you like kombucha? I just don't know this about you.
No, there's one kind that I like. Only one
Okay.
flavor. Yeah.
All right. Well, because we've been friends for so long, I'll forgive you.
You'll allow it. Okay, good. Excellent.
You're on thin ice.
The next time I come over to your house, you're gonna just serve me a tall glass of something and not say what it is.
The mother is floating at the bottom.
As
I
far
think
as,
Helen
like,
aggressively agrees with you, though, Rachel.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks.
as far as the ending being like a lot to kind of piece together, I didn't feel like it was impossible to piece together. And so to me, if it's like, oh, I just need to take more time to piece it together, then I don't really like dock anything. Because I do think if I like reread the book, then I would not have as much of a need to go back and read what was happening. Like I didn't feel like Silvia Moreno-Garcia didn't know how this all pieced. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't feel like a plot
Mhm.
hole. It
And I
just
also feel like it was just the type of book where I didn't, while like I'd like to understand it better, and so I'd like to reread it to get it, I didn't feel like it wasn't a mystery. I didn't need to understand like how it unfolded for it to like be a good book. And yeah, and I trusted that like she understood it and that the book did make sense. But
That
like I was willing to just accept what was given to me. And be
Same.
like,
That was me. I
Yeah.
was very much like, I'm just along for the ride, and I
Yeah.
trust you that this will turn out.
if I read like a detective mystery, I better understand it all at the end. But like with like a gothic horror, I'm like, it's creepy and
It is
it, like,
creepy in its
seems
own
to
right,
make- and it
definitely.
seems to make sense at the end, and so I'm
And that
good.
is a huge staple of horror as a genre, is just, you know,
Accepting.
what's unexplained is scarier than what is overly
Mhm.
explained.
The questions are scarier than the answers.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly.
That's a good way of putting it.
Mhm.
God, this book was so weird.
It was a comp to Wilder Girls, I noticed. Which
Really?
was, yeah.
Didn't Wilder Girls come out? Oh, right. I'm like, didn't Wilder Girls come out first? Yeah. duh.
The author prompted it, but it was like, if you like this, you'll like this. And
Oh,
Wilder
gotcha.
Girls was one of the like suggested titles.
Huh.
Which
Maybe.
I think it's like the plant-based body horror, probably.
Yeah.
is what they're-
Did like Goodreads comp that, or did the author comp that?
It was on the publisher's website, I think. I looked up something and went,
Yeah.
well, and I mean, like I said, the plants growing out of people's body
Yeah,
type thing
yeah.
was very
Yeah.
much a Wilder Girls thing. So that's one of the
Yeah.
things I did think of.
And there
And,
just
like-
aren't as many books in this vibe to compare to at this
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
Other
just
than
know
like
that's
old
like a-
classics.
I know
There
it's a
probably
huge,
are more in adult fiction, which this was. And like I
Yeah.
really appreciated that this was adult, but the character felt kind of new adulty of like, she was an adult, this is an adult
Yeah.
book, but she wasn't like a middle-aged mother person. She was kind of just figuring herself out, and she was still the main character of an adult book, which I loved. But yeah, there wouldn't be
I
a lot
really
to
like
compare it
that.
to.
It did throw me out in the beginning because I thought it was YA when I first started reading it because I didn't really read into it at all. I went into it completely blind. All I knew was something weird about mushrooms. That's all I knew about it. So it took me a little while, and then it took me, I'm like, okay, what era are we in? Because it feels really old, but it kind of doesn't. And then it got like really specific. Okay, it's 1950. Got that in my head. And then again, I was just like some of the like terminology that they use was very like sophisticated in particular. I was like, I don't think this is young adult. And then I was like, nah, she's in her early 20s. Okay, I'm good now.
yeah,
And it
that's
got
a
real
huge
sexual,
thing, is
so-
that people
Yeah.
try to categorize adult novels as young adult, particularly when
It's
they're
funny.
written
I
by
think
women.
excuse me. I think I knew going into it that it wasn't young adult, but it's funny because at one point when they were talking about how like the whole object was to get the women pregnant, essentially, I was thinking to myself, oh crap, like this isn't YA. I mean, there's a lot of like creepy, rapey stuff going on, and like she could get pregnant in this book, and I'm like, okay, that became 10% more horrifying. Like there's this possibility of this happening to her. Like it's not off limits. So in a adult
Yeah.
book.
Helen says that it's a good bridge between YA and adult fiction, and yeah, I agree with that. I went into it knowing that it was adult, but I liked that she was younger because this like flighty socialite was a very fun character
Well, and her
to
father's
go
still
with.
sort of involved. Like he's the one that sent her, so it's
Yeah.
still like the parents are
Right,
still
yeah.
involved. And
Yeah, you definitely got that young adult vibe, and it was written like Megan said. And this was I believe it was in a post chat a while ago, and I've been meaning to make a video about it the whole time because I keep thinking about it. Was like Kelly had brought up that we want more books that are adult but written in that YA voice because like we were the generation that kind of grew up at the boom of YA, right? So we don't want the boring old adult books who's very sophisticated and very specific terminologies are used and certain tropes are used. So this book definitely bridged that gap between young adult and adult, where it felt very
crossover.
It was great. I loved it. I loved the writing.
I don't know that I
so good.
particularly felt like this was written like a young adult. No, I think we're just adults.
That's kind of the conversation
like
that I was thinking of like the millennial adult voice.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's a gothic story written by our generation, which isn't something we've seen a lot. Whereas we've read a lot of YA written by our generation, so it feels like that, but it isn't. It's just we are adults now.
Yeah, it's funny because like you,
Speak
like I know what Kaylin was talking about though, like having read high fantasy, right? You read high fantasy by someone like George R. R. Martin or Robert Jordan or whatever. Like, I mean, that's an old title, but if you read some of this like more adult focused fantasy, it's a very different voice than this other adult book, which obviously is totally different.
Yeah, it felt really comparable to me to other like horror novels. I read The Turn of the Key around the same time, and the voice felt really similar.
I'll have to write that one down.
Yeah, I know, especially now, like the last couple of years, there's been a lot of like I guess millennial authors coming out with like thrillers, horrors, just like really tense fiction books. I think that newer, I guess like newer, older millennial. I don't know. The newer millennial voice I quite like, because before like I don't really read thrillers or horror because I'm like I don't like the voice of them. They're old and stuffy. Whereas now, like if you have a new generation of people writing like this, I'm like I'm definitely more invested because I like this voice a little bit more.
Well, even just a side note of like Gideon the Ninth, of like it's just like, okay, I don't know if I could say it's fully sci-fi, but like so it's sci-fi but with just like some memes thrown in, that kind of stuff I just really enjoy.
I will say Silvia Moreno-Garcia is like barely a millennial. Like millennials start 80 I think, and she was born in 81. I just double checked.
Still get the sense though, like it's a very different read from if you were reading that from a I don't know, like older white
James Patterson,
like James Patterson. Like, the voice is gonna be like from her, the book we just read is like fresher and more engaging to me.
A lot of what we grew up on in the books we're forced to read as kids and stuff are like boomery books, and then there's a whole other generation between us and them of I'm sure we can relate to that more than those classics. It's just those aren't the ones that were these are the ones you must read.
I'm really excited, and I really hope that the market keeps growing, because we talked about like new adult for so long. It's like new adult's going to be a thing, but then it was like YA but spicy. And
no, like that's not what new adult is. Oh my god,
be spicy. Give me young adults with grown-up responsibilities and no clue how to handle them. And then like Noemi, she gets in there and she's like, I am not a child, but I don't know what to do with this. And I want so much more of that in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
A very big time in your life and a very big feeling to have to deal with. So it's weird that there isn't a whole specific category like for middle grade and YA. The specific, coming of age and finding your way in the world. And then what about when you sort of have found your way in the world, but you're still not really sure if you're adulting correctly, well, like
I find that of course all the like new adult stuff is like, it will be themes of like going to college, being reliable, like being self-reliable for the first time, learning grown-up responsibilities, finding yourself more, like away from your family, or like traveling on your own for the first time. But it just is like, new adults is just like some college kids being spicy together, and I'm like, that's not what I want. That's not it.
I'm okay with there not being like a separate category of it. Like I think it just belongs in adult fiction, but I just I would
we just have to accept that this new adulty feeling is how adults feel.
It's just adults.
It's just adults now.
It is just being able to find it, because I know it's out there. Like I know there are books,
there's a ton
about people in 20s. It's just always finding it. But
I think there's a lot too where it's labeled as like it's a crossover age. So the Wicked Saints series, we're gonna start pretty old and we're just gonna get older, but it's gonna be a YA. Wink.
Just marketed that way has nothing
Yeah,
to do with
so
the
much
writing.
of it is marketing.
Yeah.
Where are they
I,
gonna put
actually on Tuesday I have a video coming up about age bands and how to properly talk about graphic themes in whatever age category that you're going to be writing. So
That's
some
awesome.
promo that's coming to you soon.
On another note, I was gonna say that like I am really excited to read more of Silvia Moreno-Garcia's books. Like I want to read Gods of Jade and Shadow. But then I was looking up the Wikipedia page about her, and I found out that in 2013 she co-edited a collection of fungal fiction called Fungi.
Yup.
Really new for her.
That is on brand.
That's hilarious.
Is she like? Does she have a background in like that the study of fungi or
I
something?
don't
Like,
think so.
all right. I mean, you
She's
gotta have
like-
a hobby.
She's like edited a lot of like collections and short story collections and stuff. So.
I'm just really
Yes.
interested in mushrooms.
Also saying I read Gods of Jade and Shadow first last year before reading this one, and I really liked it. I thought it actually had a lot more it's like a lot more of city life and like being in Mexico City, being among the people, among the cultures and the traditions, and then it goes into like the underworld of Xibalba and like the gods of death, and it's so freaking cool because I think it's like a very underutilized like set of gods that I haven't really seen in fiction, and it's the coolest. I really, really loved it.
I keep hearing that's on my list, so that's just gonna move up a little bit, I guess.
I want to say she has like a lot of books.
Oh,
coming out
Helen
this
said
year.
in the comments she has a new book coming out this year. She does.
She
I'm
has
so
3
excited.
books coming out this year.
3 books coming out this year.
3 books
Jesus.
coming out this year.
Oh my god! Because the one that I heard of is The Beautiful Ones,
Yeah.
which is coming in.
I think that some of them,
May?
including the beautiful
April.
ones, are being republished. The beautiful ones came out in 2017 originally.
Oh, all right.
Mhm.
Because she also has Velvet Was the Night is coming out in August, and then Certain Dark Things in September. I'm trying to
so-
see if those are repubs.
Certain
Oh my
Dark Things
God.
is from 2016, but then the other one I think is new.
I'm very
Wow.
curious. if
Very
they're
exciting.
her books because of the success of this one and Gods of Jade and Shadow, if they're like putting her old ones out there because of that.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
probably. Stephanie commented, maybe she'll hide mushrooms in all her books.
Yes.
That would be a perfect Easter egg to look for.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it Hysteric Blue said I'm excited for the reissue of her book about vampires in Mexico City. Which
I think
one
that's
is
the beautiful ones.
it?
Maybe.
I really
No,
want
the beautiful ones is about telekinesis. Apparently.
What?
The other one, Certain Dark Things, must be the vampire one.
Ooh, I like that.
Oh,
title.
yes, please.
I'm also excited to read Untamed Shore, which is Baja California in 1979, where like a young girl gets caught up in like mysterious murders.
Ooh.
Yeah, Certain Dark Things is the vampire one.
Is there a murder in it? Megan's gonna read it.
Yeah. Also, I
Yeah,
am.
branding.
My Twitter is like 80% just a Silvia Moreno-Garcia stan account now. After just one book, just imagine how insufferable I will be after I read more of them.
So, do any of us or anyone in the discussion section have any final thoughts on this particular book before we start to wrap up for the evening? Megan's a fan.
It was good.
I love it.
I just wrong side every time. I guess I want her to write more Gothic specifically. If you're listening,
I just want more Gothic in like
Yeah, I want more
Things.
Gothic books.
it's so good.
Yeah. I'm not super well versed in modern Gothic that's coming up, but I did read The Turn of the Key, and I would recommend that if you haven't read it. It's a retelling of Henry James's The Turn of the Screw. And it's like haunted house, but the haunted house is full of like modern technology, which is what makes it creepy.
Ooh.
Cool.
So it's like a
Interesting.
modern Gothic feel. It's very different from Mexican Gothic, which I love so much. But if you're like, I want something else that feels Gothic but is more modern, I would recommend The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. After you reread Mexican Gothic, of course.
Of course.
And also, speaking of murder, our next book club, which is going to be at some point next quarter, because we do them
Because there's no
just
rules
kind of by
anymore.
feeling, It's going to be The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton, which is somebody, Evelyn Hardcastle is probably the one that gets murdered. And then the main character is trying to solve the mystery, but wakes up in a different person / suspect's body every time. It sounds interesting, so I'm excited to check that one out. And I'm definitely feeling a little more, I want to find more mystery vibe kind of things, so I think that'll be fun. But next month is going to be our game night, which we haven't really figured out yet. Again, just going by feeling. We're going to see what happens. We're going to play it. It's going to be great. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
I think Ed Griswold has a great closing statement. My dislike for mushrooms is far worse after reading this book.
Agreed. I was never a fan. Just from the get-go.
I'm with Hysteric Blue, who says, but king oyster mushrooms are so yummy.
Yes.
No, they're creepy. They taste rubbery.
Don't trust the mushrooms.
Not if they're
kid.
cooked well. They should not be rubbery.
They're evil.
Fight.
That's you, Emma.
No, you can just have my mushrooms. Like if we get like a pizza and there's mushrooms on it, and we can just have my mushrooms. Problem solved.
No, once mushrooms touches anything, it tastes like mushrooms forever.
Yes, thank you. People are like, they have no taste. I'm like, it tastes like grossness.
They have
It tastes like rubbery dirt.
Yes, rubber dirt. Thank you.
You can just see Emma seething. I'm like, no.
Rachel and I both have my head
mushrooms are yummy.
Emma's just like, the mushrooms are going to eat you all, and they're going to think you taste good.
All right. On that note, this has been delightful. We will be back on Tuesday and Thursday with our regular videos, including Rachel's wonderful age brackety goodness. We'll be back next Sunday with something that we'll figure out after we finish this. And we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.